those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
Time now for the most listened to talk show in Vegas. Talking with those on the right, the left, and everywhere in between. It's Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro.
I hate everything about this Brian Shapiro guy.
This show will make you laugh, make you cry, and it might raise Brian's blood pressure.
You know what, dude? People like you, all you do is make excuses for the orange turd, and I've had it.
Buckle up, because it's Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro.
You're different. I like you.
Now, here's Brian.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us on a Thursday. It is Pushing the Limits. You could be listening on the FM AM dial, of course. You could also be listening on the Occupy Democrats Network, the Washington Press Network. I mentioned KSHP. Of course, we're on Twitch. We're on X. We're on YouTube. My personal YouTube page, which is growing rapidly by the day, which we appreciate, is at PTL Radio Show. And we have a big show lined up for you today. There's new information, of course, in this school shooting in Georgia that I'm going to be getting to in a moment. Coming up here in just a few minutes, though, the Kamala Harris campaign national spokesperson is going to be joining us, Kevin Munoz, for a lot of different reasons. Certainly, I'll ask him about gun control. I'll ask him about this upcoming debate on September 10th. But the Harris campaign also put out this proposal for an expansion of tax relief for starting a small business, setting a goal of about $25 million for new small business applications in just the first term. So we'll talk to him about that as well, and that'll be coming up here, as I mentioned, in just a few minutes. We covered it yesterday. We're going to cover it today, of course, on this school shooting in Georgia. And the comments that the governor of Georgia has made in Brian Kemp are the exact same comments that Republicans make every single time there's a mass shooting. They talk about God, and they say, now is not the time to talk about gun control. We'll get to that. But the new information, of course, that we're reporting on are the victims, which come before anything else. 2 innocent 14-year-old students and 2 teachers were killed yesterday in a mass shooting at this local high school in Winder, Georgia. 9 other people, including 8 students and 1 teacher, were injured, but they are expected to make a full recovery, thank God. The 14-year-old student is facing charges including 4 counts of felony murder, according to charging documents that were obtained. He will be tried as an adult. And to no surprise to many, the gun of choice that was used was an AR platform weapon, an AR-15 style rifle. What is very problematic and concerning, among many things, is that this 14-year-old, Colt Gray, was interviewed by the FBI last year, and that there were threats that he was going to commit a school shooting as early as a year ago. And Colt and his father were interviewed. They were interviewed 13 miles from their home. Colt was 13 at the time of the interview, where he said someone is apparently accusing him. His father said someone is accusing him of threatening to shoot up a school. And apparently Colt said he would never say such a thing, even in a joking manner, according to Jackson County Sheriff's investigator Dan Miller Jr. Colin Gray told investigators he had hunting rifles in the house and said Colt is allowed to use them when supervised, but does not have unfettered access to them. When you know that your son is mentally ill, when you know that your son has made threats to give him any access to guns, that person deserves to go to jail. And I'm sure this will be investigated. According to the investigator said Colt assured me that he had never made any threats to shoot up any school, and that he had urged Colin to keep his firearms locked away and advised him to keep Colt out of the school until this matter could be resolved. Another investigator wrote that the case would be closed because the allegation that Colt or Colin is the user behind the Discord account that made the threat cannot be substantiated. They closed the case. Obviously, that was Colt. Obviously. And I'm going to say obviously here because I find it hard to believe that the father didn't have any warning signs at all. And I understand that the father is not the person that pulled the trigger. Listen, I understand that. But the idea that the father didn't have any warning signs at all, this is why kids should never have access to guns. It doesn't matter whether they are mentally fit or not. A 14-year-old is not allowed to purchase a gun. A 14-year-old should not be allowed to shoot a gun under any circumstances. I've said legally the age should turn to 18 to 21. But under no circumstances, even supervision, should a child be allowed to shoot a gun. Period. That is my personal opinion. Period. End of story. Kids should never know where the guns are in the house, and they shouldn't ever have access to weapons. Period. There's a reason why the age is 18. But in my personal opinion, the age should be turned to 21. We are back to this, and we are going to talk about it extensively. I have a lot of audio to play for you from Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, and many others. So we'll have the full coverage for you, and we'll be talking about that. But joining me right now to talk about Kamala Harris's proposal with this tenfold expansion of tax relief and many other issues, of course. He's been on this show before, and we certainly appreciate his time. He is the Kamala Harris campaign national spokesperson. He is Kevin Munoz, who joins us right now on the show. Kevin, I do appreciate you coming on again with us. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing good, Kevin. Always appreciate the time, my friend. So obviously, I want to get into this new tenfold expansion tax relief plan. Before I do that, if you don't mind, if I can just ask you one question about another mass shooting, in this case involving children at this school in Georgia. We know that Harris and Biden, and let's be honest, most Democrats have been trying to pass comprehensive, gun reform, and Biden was able to do it, and Harris were able to do a little bit of that. But what do you make of this again, Mr. Munoz? Another shooting involving children in a school.
Well, look, this is a personal one for me. I had a shooting at my high school when I was, 15 years old in Jacksonville, Florida, not too far away from where the shooting yesterday happened. And look, weapons of war have no place in classrooms. They don't have a utility in places where students should be safe. And we just have to come at this forcefully and reasonably and stand with the overwhelming majority of Americans that do not believe that we should have weapons of war in our streets and our schools. And Kamala Harris stands with that overwhelming majority that want to do the right thing. And the right thing is to make sure that we keep our kids and our community safe. Mm-hmm. And the Second Amendment can absolutely survive and thrive. And those that want to protect themselves and those that want to hunt can absolutely do so. But we can also do better by the American people to keep guns out of the wrong hands. And what you've seen, and I'll stop here, I'll stop pontificating, but I think it's really important to understand, as somebody that grew up, this was the issue for me and why I got into politics. We haven't seen meaningful gun safety legislation until Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came to the table after Uvalde, brought Republicans to the table to make for the most single-handed, consequential gun safety legislation in more than 3 decades. It's not enough. We have to do more, but we need to elect reasonable people like Kamala Harris and not Donald Trump, who said, if I may remind you, we have to get over it about the last school shooting.
Don't even get me started with Trump on gun control. As you know, Kevin, we had the biggest mass shooting in this history of this country right here in Las Vegas, October 1. He said he wanted to do something about bump stocks, and then he meets the former leader of the NRA and sucks up to him. So don't even get me started on that. I'm with you there. Last question on this, and then we'll get to some other things. But what do you make of the comments from most Republicans after these mass shootings? We had Governor Kemp yesterday in a press conference says, now's not the time to talk about gun control. Those are his words, not mine. But then they'll talk about God. They'll switch to God, but they don't want to talk about gun control. I remember Governor Abbott did the same thing after the Texas El Paso shooting and the school shooting there as well. It seems like the response from Democrats is very consistent, right? Harris, you had mentioned, of course, and Biden, where they talk about we need to do more. Here's what we need to do. And they try to come up with solutions. And the Republicans want to talk about God. And after a mass shooting, they never want to talk policy. What do you make of that, Kevin?
I think this is exactly what frustrates so many Americans with Washington. It is the inaction, it's the intractability. And what I think that this ticket can run on is a record of getting things done and getting things done on things that people demand action on. Addressing gun violence is a top voting issue. And when you look at this issue, the lives lost yesterday, they should not be honored with just thoughts and prayers. They should be honored with action. And that is what the vice president will fight for. It is what we have delivered on. We have to do more. It's a solemn one, and it's hard for me. It's hard for so many of us that have experienced this personally, and we just have to do better. And we can, but we have to remind ourselves that this matters at the ballot box. The cost of living matters. The historical, context and how you voted all your life matters absolutely. But when it comes down to moments like this, there's really only one candidate fighting.
Certainly, when it comes to gun control, I agree with you, and a number of other issues that we're now going to get to. If you're just joining us, he is the national campaign spokesperson for the Kamala Harris campaign. I'm talking about Kevin Munoz, who's joining us right now. So the Harris campaign put together a proposal, tenfold expansion of tax relief for starting small businesses. I think a lot of people get their eyes open with that because, I think a lot of people in this country are pretty much, I guess you could say, sick of catering to the rich, right? And as Harris pointed out, listen, starting up a small business averages, costing of around $40,000. She spoke about this yesterday. Not a lot of people have $40,000 laying around. And she talked about that. So talk to me a little bit about this proposal and what it will mean for those in the middle class that want to start up a small business.
Well, look, this is a common sense capitalist proposal from the vice president that's focused on small businesses. But it's really about, let's take a step back. It's making an environment in which every business and every type of American can have the opportunity to succeed and thrive in this country. And so we want to make sure big businesses are doing well, but we also want to make sure the backbone of this country, small businesses, are in a place where they can grow and they can thrive and they can increase employees and do so easily. The president of the United States should be fighting on these basic issues. So when you look at this, this proposal, it really is, where it's not sensational as much as it is like super practical. Like, let's make sure those that are starting a businesses have the resources they need so they're not in the red for an indefinite period of time, which is the first flank of it. The second flank is, I don't know about you, but filing taxes for a small business is not easy. It's not fun. And we should cut that red tape, cut that bureaucracy, and make it easier for every American that is a small business to hire, to grow. And then third, look, Nevada knows this well. The pandemic was hard on our economy, but we have come out of it very strong. And small businesses have seen record performance, record growth, 19 million small business applications under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris thinks that we could do more. So we're setting a goal of 25 million job applications, building that progress because, again, half of the country is employed by a small business. We need to do everything possible so that they can survive and thrive.
Yeah, I read this entire proposal. I think it's great. I'll be honest with you. I think it's great. I read the whole thing. A lot of people are excited about it. How frustrating is it? It's frustrating for me. I can't imagine how frustrating it is for people like you when you hear people on the right, MAGA Republicans particularly, say, we don't know what her proposal is. We don't know what her stance is on this issue, on that issue. And I say to them, well, what are you confused about? We know her stance on gun control. We know her stance on the economy and healthcare. And this is just another example. You guys have put out a lot of different, and she's talked about a lot of stances and how she feels on a number of different issues. We could be talking about the war, is the Israel-Palestinian conflict. We could be talking about Ukraine. She's talked about all those issues. So what is your response when a MAGA Republican, or you hear a MAGA Republican say, we don't know where Harris stands on a number of different issues. She hasn't told us. What's your response to that?
I don't think we spend a lot of time looking at the MAGA talking points as much as we continue to cement the choice for the American people. And every single day, Kamala Harris is out there. Our campaign is out there, and we're talking about the future. We're talking about lowering costs. We're talking about safer communities. We're talking about addressing the fact that women's reproductive rights are under full out assault by Republicans. And every day, Donald Trump tries to spin another distraction because he doesn't want to talk about his economic plan. His economic plan would soar the deficit to help the ultra rich. He is running proudly with the guy that wrote the foreword for the Project 2025 book. He doesn't really believe that our democracy should survive in many cases as we know it. And so, look, they're going to do these distractions. They think they're salient. But when we look at the record we are running on, it is a record and it is a vision that grows the electorate. And so our job for the next 61 days, it's only 61 days,
Yep.
is to continue to carry what we know is a popular message, but bring it to voters in places like Nevada and make sure they know the simple question, who is fighting for you?
No doubt. So, Kevin, we're only a few days away from what I would consider probably the most anticipated presidential debate, certainly in my lifetime and probably yours, right? September 10th, a few days away. It does appear like it's going to happen. I know both campaigns have kind of gone back and forth a little bit on whether the mic's going to be on or off. It appears the mics are going to be off when you're not allowed to speak. Can I get your thoughts on that and just your thoughts in general, just a few days away now from this debate between Harris and Trump?
Well, look, I think it's really important that everybody understands this is going to be a tough debate. Donald Trump isn't good at a lot of things. He's good on putting on a performance. This will be his 7th general election presidential debate. And you're right, the muted mics benefits him. He's not going to sound as delusional as normal because you won't be able to hear him when he's ranting and raving about X or Y toxic thing.
Kevin, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's a really important point you just made. Is that why the campaign wanted the mics to be on? Can you clarify that? Because that makes sense to me.
We think that the American people deserve to hear from Donald Trump, from everything he says under a whisper to everything he says on Truth Social to everything he's going to say at this debate. And so we also think that the vice president is pretty good at prosecuting the case. It's kind of her lifetime work. And so, yeah, this is going to be a harder debate. And we're going to, make sure that she is prepared. I know she is excited. At the end of the day, we know the takeaway from this debate is going to be a view for the future from Kamala Harris and a view to take this country backwards with Donald Trump. And we know where the American people are at. Yeah,
no, there's certainly no question about that. I would very busy next 61 days for you and the staff. There's certainly no doubt about that. Is it fair to say that we should probably expect Kamala Harris to be back in the state of Nevada sometime soon?
Not just Kamala Harris, but you're going to see our running mate. You're going to see their families. Look, the road to the White House runs through Nevada. I don't think I have to tell you that.
Sure. No doubt about that. Well, Kevin, I always appreciate your time. We look forward to having you on again soon down the road. We know how busy you guys are and always appreciate you answering our questions here. And we look forward to talking to you again soon, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Appreciate that. That's Kevin Munoz. He is the Kamala Harris national campaign spokesperson. Always good to get his take on a number of different things. And by the way, I have the whole proposal in front of me with what they put together with this tenfold extension of tax relief for starting a small business. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great plan. We know that Donald Trump caters to the rich. How do we know that? Well, the biggest tax breaks for the top 1% in decades. We know that. This is another example of the Democrats and Harris putting forth a plan to help middle-class families and those that want to start up a business after COVID, maybe those who lost a business because of COVID. So I think it's a great plan, and we appreciate Kevin joining us on the show. I do want to circle back. By the way, one important side note to that interview, and that makes sense to me. I tried to figure out in my mind, why do they want the mics on, not off? Wouldn't it benefit Harris if the mics were off so he doesn't interrupt her? But to the contrary, it might benefit Harris because you get to hear Donald Trump unhinged, interrupting, but that's not going to happen. But it was interesting to get that clarification, and that's why they wanted the mics turned on. So I want to go back again to what was been the biggest news story in the news cycle here the last day, sadly, is this school shooting in Georgia. I know firsthand, I lived maybe 15 minutes from Sandy Hook, where you had a deranged individual, a mentally ill individual, whose mother gave him access to guns. It appears, and again, I'm saying it appears, that this young man who committed this horrible act in killing 2 students and 2 teachers, it appears is that his father gave him access to the guns in the house, including an AR-15 style rifle. So we heard from Governor Brian Kemp last night for the first time. And like so many other Republicans, After a devastating mass shooting, and this time involving children, kids, we hear the same talking points from Governor Brian Kemp, who, in my opinion, is a coward. Here's what Brian Kemp had to say in his very, very brief statement last night. And of course, he brings up thoughts and prayers.
You know, I represented Bexar County when I was in the state Senate 20 years ago. These are our neighbors, these are our friends, and this community is hurting today. And I would just ask all Georgians and all Americans to continue to keep these families, these educators, and these students in your thoughts and prayers. And we will provide every state resource that is needed from here until they're not.
You hear that echo? Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. We keep them near and dear to our heart. Nothing about policy, nothing about the mistakes that he has made. Oh, yeah, by the way, this was a guy who implemented a policy in his state, making it easier for all people in the state of Georgia to buy guns. If you don't believe me, you can look up the policy yourself. And he's put campaign ads together holding AR-15s. And then in the press conference, somebody in the media appropriately asked him, as they should, I would ask the same question, about how can we prevent these things from happening to the future. Not only does he not own anything, but again, it's the same response we get from MAGA Republicans after a mass shooting, and Brian Kemp is just another example of this. Have a listen.
Look, we've done a tremendous amount on school safety, but today is not the day for politics or policy. Today is the day for an investigation to mourn these precious Georgians that we have lost.
Yeah, today's not the day. Then when is, Governor? When is the day to talk about it? You coward. This is a guy who's made it easier for criminals to get their hands on guns in the state of Georgia. If you don't believe me, you could look at some of the laws that he helped pass and implemented. And then after we lose two 14-year-olds, 14 years old, their entire life ahead of them, and two hero teachers who were just doing their job that day, one of whom was a coach on the football team. And the day of, he says, now's not the day to talk about it. I remember Governor Abbott, and I remember that Texas El Paso shooting at the Walmart. Do you all remember that shooting? In the manifesto where, you know, this deranged individual wanted to kill a bunch of brown people because they might be immigrants. That night, Governor Abbott held a very brief press conference. And in those statements, he said, now's not the time to talk about, gun political issues. And since then, Governor Abbott has made it easier for criminals to get their hands on guns. After the Uvalde shooting, Governor Abbott was holding a campaign event. And while he was counting his campaign dollars and refused to cancel the event, this event was that night, just hours after the Uvalde shooting, where they hadn't even counted how many innocent children had died yet. Governor Abbott refused to cancel his political event, and he was counting the money that he was making. Because that's who these people are. They care more about money. They care more about staying in power. They care more about their A+ rating from the NRA than they do public safety. And their actions speak louder than any words. They can talk about God until the cows come home, but I'll tell you something. God is not going to save our children. God is not going to save our children when some crazy lunatic person, could be 14, could be 100, I don't care how old they are, when some lunatic has an assault weapon, goes into the school and wants to kill a bunch of innocent people. God is not going to save those children. But that's what these MAGA Republicans want to talk about. They want to talk about God, and they want to put the 10 Commandments in school. But what they don't want to do is comprehensive gun reform, comprehensive background checks. They don't want an assault weapons ban. They don't want more laws on the books, red flag laws, for example. But they want to talk about God, and they think arming our kindergarten teachers is the answer. These people are sick, including Representative Mike Collins. If you don't know who Representative Mike Collins is, well, guess what? He's a right-wing MAGA Republican and a gun lover who represents that same district where this school shooting happened in Georgia yesterday. And he was asked back in 2022 if he favored any gun laws, including red flag laws. Let me repeat that. Any gun laws, including red flag laws. Well, guess what? He said the answer was no. Have a listen to this.
but are you open to any compromise gun control legislation that's being discussed in Washington? So-called red flag laws, expanded background checks.
I am absolutely opposed to red flag laws. I am 100% adamant that the Second Amendment is written right. There is no changing it. We do have problems. We don't have a gun control problem in this country. We don't have a gun problem in this problem. What we have is a cultural problem where we have removed God from every facet of our life, be it from the schools, from prayer, even television. That's where we've got to get back to where the sanctity of life means something.
Yeah, that's so it's God. We don't have God in our life, and that's why. We don't have a gun control problem. Let's just forget about the 140 guns per 100 people we have in this country. That's not a gun issue at all. We don't have a gun control problem, he says. The issue when it comes to all the guns and the gun violence in this country, it's because it's a God issue. And then this is the guy who put out a commercial not that long ago shooting an AR-15. This nut job, because that's what he is. He is a nut. Listen to this ad. Again, Mike Collins, who represents the district where this shooting happened, puts out an ad, and during this entire ad, he's holding an AR-15 and shooting it at the end of the commercial. Listen to this.
Hey, Mike Collins here, you pro-Trump America First trucker, running for Congress here in Georgia 10. Well, I understand Joe Biden was in town yesterday to talk about our elections. It seems that he and Kamala Harris called anyone who disagreed with the federal hijacking of this election a racist. Well, Joe, I got some news for you. Let me tell you what Georgians really believe. First of all, you count the legal votes that were cast in the state of Georgia, Donald Trump won this state, period. Number two, get rid of those voting machines. Go back to paper ballots once and for all. Number three, get rid of those ridiculous drop boxes across this state that the Democrats use to stuff the ballots and steal our elections. Number four, let's go to national forensic audits in every election cycle across this country. As a matter of fact, it's one of the first bills I'll introduce when I get to Washington. You see, Georgians are sick and tired of weak-kneed, spineless politicians who won't fight for Trump, get to the bottom of 2020, and fix our elections. Well, if they won't do it, Mike Collins will.
What a tough guy.
Send me to Washington. I'll fix this election. I'll get to the bottom of 2020.
I can't take this guy anymore. He's shooting an AR-15 in his commercial. He says God is the answer. And then he talks about how Georgia was stolen for Joe Biden. He's another election-denying fool, an imbecile, who is dangerous, who talks about God and makes love to his AR-15s every night. This is who they elected. Should we be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, that there was a mass shooting there? Should it shock you? These are the kinds of people that Democrats have to work with. Should it shock you? Should it be a surprise to you? This guy is an imbecile. We have a serious problem in this country when it comes to guns. And unfortunately, not everybody is fighting for the health, security, and safety of the American people, because there are many MAGA Republican nut jobs out there, like Mike Collins and like Brian Kemp. I'm going to put him in there as well, because he gave the same BS, no backbone, coward answer yesterday as so many of these other Republicans do after mass shootings. Now's not the time. Well, then when is? When is the time to sit down with some of your colleagues on both sides of the aisle and try to come up with laws that'll work, that'll save lives? When is the right time? Because you guys never want to do it. When is the right time? After a horrible mass shooting that involved children that lost their lives, isn't this exactly the time to be talking about these issues? But they want to talk about God. And a buffoon like Mike Collins wants to talk about how God, their answer is always God. Isn't it interesting when some of these people, whether we're talking about the clergy, molesting children, pedophiles, they want to call Democrats all pedophiles, by the way. It's interesting. Isn't it interesting that when they commit the worst of sins, they move to God. These people know that they're partially responsible for all the gun violence in this country. Christ, they make it easier for people to get their hands on guns. They don't think we have a gun control issue. And by the way, when because a lot of these people want to talk about the Constitution when we had something called muskets too. But a lot of uneducated right-wingers out there, when they talk about guns, they always refer to the Constitution. In the Constitution, it says well-regulated militia. Part of being well-regulated is comprehensive background checks. Part of being well-regulated, push the age from 18 to 21. Let's get some mandatory training classes available for people, and let's give some classes that teach people not only how to shoot a gun, how to arm themselves, but also how to store a weapon so that nobody else has access to it. That's part of being well-regulated for you constitutional activists out there. Weapons of war should not be sold in the hands of the general public, period. I've talked about that time and time again. If you threaten somebody's life, you should not, and there's credible evidence like a voicemail or something, right? There has to be some form of evidence or witnesses. You should not be able to have a gun or purchase a gun until you see a judge and they are deemed fit and okay to be out there in society and own a weapon. Red flag laws need to be in every state in this country, and they need to be abided by. Notice how I didn't mention God in anything? How about those innocent people that were in that synagogue in Pittsburgh? You remember that? Good, wholesome people of the Jewish faith that were praying. And so many of them were executed. I guess God didn't help them. What about all those innocent black people in that church? And they were gunned down and killed, if for anything, the color of their skin. They were praying to God. God was very much in their life, but God didn't really seem to help. If you all want to be religious, that's your prerogative. You have that right. But don't preach to me about God when it comes to policy, the separation between church and state. I do want to open up the phone lines now at 702-221-7283. And again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Listen, 702-221-7283. We have Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, talking about God. When asked, what can you do to prevent these things from happening? Doesn't want to talk about that. Doesn't want to talk about policy because they are cowards. You have Representative Mike Collins the coward, as I would like to tell him, the religious nut zealot who says the 2020 election was stolen. He starts talking about the voting machines. And in his commercial, he's shooting a weapon. Should we be surprised that something like this happened in his district? And he wants to talk about God, and he says we don't have a gun control problem in our country. It is absurd. These people are disgusting. They are mentally ill. They make love to their guns every night. Not one Democrat, I'm certainly not saying this, and not one prominent Democrat has ever said we want to take all your guns away. That is another right-wing lie talking point. Not one prominent Democrat has ever said we want to take all your guns away. Never have, never will. I respect the fact that everybody has the right to defend themselves and purchase weapons. That's fine. But what type of weapons are we talking about? You don't need an AR-15 or an assault weapon to defend yourself. You just don't. And I am not going to get into the weeds with you. Brian, what's an assault weapon? What's not? Because those are the kinds of people that don't have any solutions. They think more guns make us safer. We have 140 guns per 100 people in this country. We are obsessed with our guns. So don't you preach to me, oh, I know a lot about guns, Brian. You don't know what an assault weapon is. I want to know what your solutions are. Because a lot of people like that think that more guns make us safer, which they don't. You think more guns make us safer? Ask about the victims' families at the Uvalde shooting. Did more guns make their children safe? They're dead. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's start with Shakira. Shakira is first up. Shakira, I apologize. First up on PTL. Hi, Shakira. What's going on?
Hi, my first time calling in. Been watching you with my husband for a few months now, so it's nice to talk to you.
Thank you. Where do you live?
I live in Maryland.
Okay, well, thank you for calling in. What's on your mind today?
So I am so confused by this election. I know somebody else called and kind of was the same as me. He called a couple times. Just wondering what is wrong with the world? Like, why do we have so many people still trying to vote for Trump? I don't get it.
I will say this. I'm not going to blame the world, but I will say there's a lot of people in this country that feel that way. So you're absolutely right. I think it's a couple things. Shakira, I think it's a couple things, and I'll probably be missing a lot, but I think there are several different type of Donald Trump supporters. First, there are a percentage of Donald Trump supporters that are not very educated. Donald Trump said, I'll vote for I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. They'll still support me. I'm talking about those people. They're part of a cult. They're uneducated and they're brainwashed. So those are three very dangerous things. So they'll vote for Donald Trump no matter what, because they watch their Newsmax and their OAN and their Fox News and Jesse Waters, and they believe everything they say. As Donald Trump once said to Stephanie Grisham, it doesn't matter whether it's a lie, as long as we keep repeating it over and over and over again, they'll start believing it. So that is a percentage of the Trump supporters. By the way, I would say his base, that are people that are, for the most part, middle-aged, white, uneducated people. Then you have a group of people that are smart, a group of people that are educated. But they're also a group of people that are selfish. What do I mean by that? Well, if they're wealthy, they know that if Donald Trump gets into office, they're probably going to save money on taxes. While it will hurt the middle class and those suffering, living paycheck to paycheck, they know it'll help them. They are selfish people, and they know who Donald Trump is, by the way. Make no mistake about it. These people know who he is. They know he's a felon. They know he's a liable rapist, but it doesn't matter to them, right? They're going to vote for him anyway. And then there's the third group of people, and this is a small percentage of people, but the third group of people that will be supporting Donald Trump are only supporting him because they're a Republican. They're only supporting him because it might help them politically or help their place in power wherever they are. So those are the three groups. The first group I mentioned is the most important one because it's the overwhelming large base of Trump supporters. And listen, I didn't put bigots in there or racists, but obviously chances are if you're a bigot, if you're a racist, if you're homophobic, there's no chance you're voting Democrat. You're voting Donald Trump. So when you ask me why, I'm generalizing it, but Donald Trump's base are that first group of people that I just talked about.
It's just embarrassing. I'm like, and then they think Kamala Harris is fake. Everything's fake joy. But I'm like, I see Trump as fake. How do you not see all the flip-flopping back and forth? But Kamala coming out and being genuine, I hope she's genuine.
Well, it's pretty simple.
It's fake.
It's pretty simple. Let's just break it down. Donald Trump gets up in the morning. He puts 8 layers of orange makeup on. He has a fake tan. He has 4 hair transplants. He has fake hair. He has fake teeth. Everything about this guy is fake. Thousands of lawsuits and many of his companies that have filed for bankruptcy. Everything about this man is fake, including his draft dodging and his fake bone spurs. The guy has lived a fake life. Everything about him is fake, from the way he looks and the way he acts. So, when people say, well, Donald Trump did this for himself, he could have just drove into the MAGA sunset and enjoyed the later years of his life. Make no mistake about it. When Donald Trump says he did it for all of you, no, he did it for himself, for personal wealth. He's only cared about himself his entire life, and this man is not going to change. Shakira, thank you so much for calling in out of Maryland, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Nelson. Nelson is next up on PTL. What's going on, Nelson?
Brian, the Republicans have proven time and time again that they are the party of domestic terrorism. They rather protect and defend domestic terrorism than to protect our children in classrooms, and yet they call themselves pro-life. They don't even want to protect the children in our classrooms.
Yeah. Well, that gets me angry because they're not pro-life, Nelson. Let's be honest here, okay? The people that
they're not pro-life.
They're anti-abortion, and then the second the child is born, they're anti-life. They're against maternity leave. They're against any government program that could help those parents or that parent raise that child. They're against food stamps. They're against welfare. They're against literally any government program that can help the poor. So when they say they're pro-life, they're anti-life. No, the party that's pro-life to me is the Democrat Party today in 2024, because all the programs that help the poor, for the most part, are passed by Democrats, not Republicans. So go ahead.
Also, I want to say is just 2 more points. Is one, they misinterpret the amendment for gun rights. That amendment was not for universal gun rights.
Yeah. You're right.
Right. They misinterpret that to say it's, basic rights, and it wasn't, because that is not what the founding fathers, meant when they wrote that amendment.
You're right.
And lastly, there's a reason why his supporters they wear these gold diapers to his rallies. It's because it's alleged, according to folks around Trump at the time, is that he wears adult diapers. Because he craps his pants. Because he craps his pants.
Well, that might,
so for
that
me,
might...
for somebody who craps their pants, they shouldn't. They're not fit for office.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why Donald Trump is unfit for office. I don't know if crapping his pants is number one on my list, but I'll take your word for that one. But I'll tell you this. I mean, listen, being a felon, a convicted felon, should probably be number one. He's a 34-count convicted felon. I tend not to want leaders of the free world to be liable sexual abusers. I tend not to want leaders of the free world to be losing thousands and thousands of lawsuits, thousands and thousands of civil lawsuits, and Trump University and being con men. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Roy. Roy is next on PTL. What's up, Roy?
Trump University and being
Roy, are you there?
702-221-7283.
I think we lost Roy. Roy?
Hey, how you doing, Brian?
Okay, just making sure you're there. Go
I'm
ahead,
here.
Roy. Okay, go ahead.
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. You've got to be a moron to support this party. But I had an idea. I think that both Harris and Trump should be wired at the debate. And every time one of them lies, a shot gets sent through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Trump will turn black by the end of the debate. All kidding aside, as far as gun control goes,
yes,
our forefathers never envisioned this type of weaponry that exists today from 200 plus years ago.
Yeah.
They never envisioned the Electoral College to be the disgrace that it is today over 200 years ago. And we have a group of idiots, several of them on the Supreme Court, who can't make laws and look at things as they were 200 plus years ago.
Right.
It's a different world today.
Why can't they understand that? Roy, as you know, I make that point almost every day on this show. When the Constitution was written, we had something called muskets, right? And people were owning human beings because of the color of their skin. And we're supposed to take everything that our forefathers wrote back then, and things can't change, and people can't change, and law can't change for the better of the American people. The way these Republicans think, they'll only talk about the Constitution if it benefits them, right? Their
only
obsession,
when it fits their idea.
Their obsession of guns is part of the reason why we had a mass shooting yesterday. Let's call it for what it is, ladies and gentlemen. You have the governor of Georgia yesterday who's asked about what can we do to prevent these things from happening again. All he talks about is God, right? Thank you to these people. That's fine. But then he starts talking about God again, and he doesn't want to talk about gun control. Now's not the time. I mean, this is almost every MAGA Republican. They don't want to talk about gun control. They want to talk about God, and it's more important for them to put the 10 Commandments in a classroom than it is gun control laws that can save lives. That's what it comes down to. They're more obsessed over their religion than public safety.
Absolutely. It's a disgrace. And now they want to put Bible studies in some of these states like Oklahoma and I think Florida. Well, DeSantis is a complete lunatic as well. But again, the whole party, it's no longer I remember when Reagan was president. I mean, it's a different party today. This is not the Republican Party.
No, it's not. And while
it's a group of lunatics.
You are
and I'm
correct.
telling you, I will bet you half the Republicans would be thrilled if Trump lost so they could go back to being normal.
I'm going to tell you something, Roy. Secretly, I think it's more than 50%. I think you're onto something there, but I think it's more than 50%. Secretly, I think they wish Donald Trump would step aside, but they're cowards and they have no backbone. The Kevin McCarthys of the world. Roy, it's good to hear from you, my friend. I appreciate the call. The Kevin McCarthys of the world, those that have no backbone. A day after the January 6th insurrection, he said Donald Trump should bear some responsibility. And then the next day, he wears the Donald Trump knee pads and he shows up to Mar-a-Lago, and all of a sudden they're good friends. Why? Because Kevin McCarthy wants to remain in power. It didn't work out very well for him, but that's why. They care more about remaining in power than public safety. Let's take one more call, and then we're going to have to go to break. 702-221-7283. And again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. 702-221-SAVE. We're going to take some more phone calls. this hour, so you're going to want to call in. Let's go to Eric. Eric is next on PTL. Hi, Eric. Where are you calling from?
Buffalo, New York.
Thank you for calling in, my friend. We got some Buffalo Sabre posters in the background here, so thanks.
I see that. That's why I just started. Just started watching you a couple weeks ago. Found you on Twitter.
Oh, good.
And I love your program.
Thank
you bring a great atmosphere to everybody. But Trump, or I'm a Democrat. I love that you're an independent. You get both sides. I got friends. Grew up in Rome, Catholic neighborhood, Irish Catholic. Supposed to be Democrat. Everybody down there is a Trump supporter. The Catholic religion, private Catholic schools, they're all Trump supporters. It's the conservative.
Why do you think that is, Eric?
What's that?
Why do you think that is?
Part of it's being bigotry. Being racist.
So, Eric, I agree with you. Here's what I would say. Now, I don't think and I don't think you think this either, that everybody that's Catholic is a racist or a bigot, but I will say this.
Oh, absolutely not.
No, but
absolutely not.
But I will say this. In some religions, they look at being gay as a sin. In some religions, but yet, they'll support the man who is a liable sexual abuser, who has 5 kids with 3 different women, who's literally cheated on every single woman he's ever had. So on one aspect, they'll never vote for somebody that's gay, right? Forget about party affiliation. They would never, an evangelical Christian will never support somebody who's gay. But yet they have no problem supporting a man who sexually abused E. Jean Carroll and has 25 women that have accused him of sexual assault or rape. They're willing to put that to the side. But if you're gay, oh no, I can't support you. This is who these people are, Eric. This is who they are. That's why they're supporting Donald Trump.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My buddy, best friend, was a Trump supporter, doesn't like him because I kind of convinced him, but I think he's going to vote for him anyways. Won't admit it. Said that he didn't know people to choose his name. He's not very educated. Let's admit it. Half of them aren't too bright. Yeah. And he said, man, I would have voted for that dude if he didn't kiss his partner on stage. It's like, that guy is brilliant. He's a good guy, good family man.
But let me tell you something, Eric. I'm glad you brought that up, because this is the type of people that vote for Trump. Example, you look at Tim Walz and his wife. You look at Kamala Harris and her husband. They love each other. They're genuine with one another. They spend all day with each other. They're on the campaign trail together in many situations. And then when you compare that to Donald Trump and Melania, who's made one public appearance with him in the last 2 years, we all know this is a contractual marriage, but they're totally okay with that. But God forbid you see Tim Walz and his son showing love for his dad, and his dad showing love for his son back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you remember the Tipper Gore and the Al Gore? Do you remember that whole the kiss and all that stuff? And Republicans had, let me tell you something. I'd rather see that. I'd rather not see either. I'll be honest with you, but I would rather I would rather see that than a woman like Melania Trump, who doesn't want to be anywhere near her husband. I mean, it's maddening to me.
Now, this same guy has daughters with mixed racial babies.
Right.
And he has come down. He has said to me, well, in a couple years, we're going to be the minority.
Yeah.
I said, so what? I said, what are you scared of? They're going to treat us like
this
they've
is
been
why
treated their whole life.
This is why you always hear Donald Trump talking and disparaging whether immigrants are legal or not legal and undocumented. This is why, because Donald Trump,
the oldest trope in the world.
You are correct, and Eric, this is exactly why you hear those on the far right that use scare tactics in attacking minorities in this country. Because Make America Great Again does not mean what you think it means. Make America Great Again means make America back to when it was white people owning slaves. I really, truly believe that's secretly what the slogan means. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We have a lot more people on hold. We're going to take more calls on the other side. Joseph, Kava, Amelia, Stephen. If the lines are busy, please keep trying, and we'll get to as many calls as we can. Coming up also in hour number 2, We are going to be joined by Ileana Dropkin, who's my residential liberal Democrat, who's going to be joining us as well. And we get the female perspective. I am looking forward to that as well. Of course, we're talking about the horrific gun violence in this country. And yesterday, another school shooting where 2 innocent 14-year-olds lost their life. I hate having to mention that. And 2 teachers lost their life. And yet, when Governor Brian Kemp does a press conference yesterday, he talks about God, he thanks people, and then says now's not the time to talk about gun control because they're all spineless. Coming up as well, we're going to have some audio from Donald Trump, who literally yesterday forgot who he was running against. He must be in the bunker. He must have Alzheimer's. We have the audio to prove it. He literally forgot who he was running against. And again, he tries to attack Kamala Harris. We'll have some audio for you there. Oh, yeah. And Liz Cheney making the news again. This shouldn't surprise a lot of you, but she has publicly endorsed somebody, and name is not Donald Trump. So we'll talk about that when we come back. I also want to remind all of you, I get emails from fans of the show, just like those last few callers who are our new listeners every day. And I appreciate all of you so much. It's very humbling. So what can you do to help us? Well, we are I guess you could call it like a public radio show in that we're an independently owned show. The station doesn't own this. I do, we do. So we're independently owned. So we're kind of like public radio or public TV. What does that mean? Well, it means we rely on people like you guys to help us to keep the lights on, for lack of a better term. So what can you do to help us? Start off by checking out the new website. It's pushingthelimits.live. Again, that website is pushingthelimits.live. Then we have merchandise. You can shop on there, mugs, shirts, beanies, you name it, we got it. If you don't want to buy any merchandise and you want to hear from me directly as a thank you, there's a donate button on the front of the pushingthelimits.live website. So you click on that button, and it doesn't matter whether it's $5, $10, $20 a month, whatever you guys can afford, we appreciate a great deal. Pushingthelimits.live, where you'll see the donate button right on the front page, and you'll hear from me directly as a thank you. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to take more phone calls on the other side. We want to hear from you. Ileana Dropkin's going to be joining us. We'll be back in 90 seconds. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP. All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we're talking about the tragic shooting that took place in Georgia where 4 people were killed, including 2 14-year-old kids. It's just absolutely tragic, absolutely terrible. We have the first presidential debate with Harris, I should say. Technically, it's the second one. But the first one with Harris, it'll be September 10th. I believe September 10th is Tuesday. Am I getting my dates right? Yes, it is. It's Tuesday on ABC. So looking forward to that as well. It's sad that, these mass shootings in this country, they happen every day. And yesterday made national news because it involved 2 children at a local school in Georgia. Number to call, by the way, if you want to be a part of the show is 702-221-7283. We are joined in studio by Ileana Dropkin, who joins us on the show every week, the residential Pushing the Limits liberal joining us here. Ileana,
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Good. I just want to mention also the 2 teachers that lost their lives and the 9 who were injured and all the other kids and adults who are going to be traumatized for a good portion of their lives after. And
yeah, it's terrible.
Having 2 school-age children myself and a third that I, kind of a bonus kid, I'm like, my heart aches. It's hard to watch.
It is. It is hard to watch, and it's extremely frustrating that Republicans continue to do nothing.
Oh, their response was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Just thoughts and prayers. Like they say, it's the same old tired stuff. And, I do kind of feel we, talk about law enforcement, that this kid was on law enforcement's radar at 13. The kid was 13 years old and they were called, but they didn't have enough. But surely, like, someone could have been responsible for monitoring his, someone local monitoring.
There's no question that there were failings by the FBI, and we're going to learn more about the father who, again, gave gun access to his son. But we'll
AR-15.
We'll learn more about that as time progresses. But I do want to play you a clip first before we get back to the calls, because for years we heard, Joe Biden's in the bunker. He's got Alzheimer's. He's this. He's that. We've heard that for years, and Donald Trump yesterday forgot who he was running against. Now, normally I wouldn't be playing a clip like this if Republicans didn't make it an issue with Joe Biden. But this is Donald Trump, in his own words, speaking yesterday, forgetting, with by the way, the biggest blowhard in the world, Sean Hannity, forgetting who he's running against. Have a listen to this.
I can't imagine New Hampshire voting for him. Anybody in New Hampshire, because they're watching right now, but anybody in New Hampshire that votes for Biden and Kamala, I really think I call her.
Anybody who votes for him, and then he realizes, I better mention Kamala. By the way,
he still mispronounces her name, and it's not that difficult.
Well, it's intentional. He literally is forgetting who he's running against. Mr. Former Orange Turd President, you're not running against Joe Biden anymore. I think you're in the bunker. I think you have Alzheimer's, and I think you need to seek help.
Too much golf.
I think this is elderly abuse, and I think you need to seek help, Mr. Former President. All right, let's take some phone calls, Ileana. What do you say? 702.
Let's go.
221-7283. And again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation is 702-221-7283. Let's go to Amelia. Amelia is next up on PTL. Hi, Amelia.
Hey, Brian. How y'all doing? Hi, Ilana.
Hi. Great name. I love your name.
Well, thank you so much. Okay, well, I'm so glad that you brought it up before break or whatever, because I said I think it's about time. So it didn't come in until late, when Kemp even did that press conference and everything. And I was like, I'm down in Southwest Georgia, and, in my opinion, I think he just lost the re-election. Plain and simple. That's all I can say.
I hope so.
Okay, but right after that happened, too, last night, that was when the announcement came out regarding Liz Cheney.
Right.
And all I can say is this. I started to cry. I'm sorry, but after all the crap that her dad had to endure from that POS and her family and her fight. I mean, I can't take her or what's his face? I'm sorry, I can't remember the other. During the trials, the day 6 trials, him,
Yeah.
for these to be, and here's the thing, in my opinion, to be as brave as she has been.
Well, I'll say this in regards to Liz Cheney. In regards to Liz Cheney, I'll say this: I disagree with her probably 95% of the time when it comes to policy, but I'm the kind of person that says, as long as you have some dignity and when push comes to shove in the most important moments in your life, you do the right thing and you put your country before yourself, which is clearly what Liz Cheney has done. I will always have respect for her. She has now endorsed Kamala Harris, which I think a lot of other Republicans will be doing secretly. But I agree with everything you said. And while I disagree with her on a number of different issues, when push came to shove, in my opinion, in the most important moment in her political life, she did the right thing.
Well, it also cost her seat, right? It cost her seat, and I'm sure this is costing her a bunch of
because she has she has morals and she has ethics. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, Amelia. And I hear your emotion and your frustration. And what we can do, the best thing we can do, is go to the ballot box in November
and make sure our friends and other Harris supporters are getting out as well, right? Seniors who can't.
No question. I agree. 702-221-7283. And it is interesting because this happens every single day on social media where occasionally you'll get some MAGA supporters, which is fine. I'm happy to take their calls, but they'll say I'm lying. They'll call me a name, but yet they don't have the guts to call into a radio show and have a live debate. That is par for the course for so many of these people who think they're smart, but then when they have an opportunity, they don't call in and tell me why I'm lying or I'm spreading propaganda. Okay, that's fine. You can call me a name. You can say I'm spreading propaganda, but tell me and be specific. What exactly did I say that you would consider propaganda? 702-221-7283. You have MAGA Republicans out there. After every mass shooting, so many of them want to talk about God. And when they're asked about policy or how do you prevent something like this from happening again, now is not the time.
Or they talk about more guns. Like, oh, we need more guns.
Yeah, which is also absurd. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. By the way, we have 140 guns per 100 people in this country. Who are we going to next year? Dumpchuck? Let's go to Kava. Kava's next up on PTL. What's up, Kava?
Hi, Brian. How are you doing today?
Hey, good. What's on your mind today?
So I just want to bring up a point about weapons and how we continue to sell real guns. And not just that, we sell toy guns that actually look like the real thing. And I feel like we're just teaching kids to rely on guns. It's ridiculous.
How?
It needs to stop.
Why do we why would we even allow anybody under the age of 18 to shoot? How could we shouldn't even allow that to happen. That's like allowing a 12-year-old to drive a car, in my opinion. Like there are rules in place. For example, you have to be 16 years old to drive a car. You shouldn't be allowed to be 14 years old and have access to guns. It is irresponsible at a minimum, and it needs to stop.
Well, can I break in here? Just okay. Speaking from the liberal position, and I'm gonna kind of differ on this because I grew up shooting from the time I was really young. Right, my grandfather was World War II. My dad was Navy. It was never a big deal. We were firearms dealers, like in my family, but we learned how to do it safely. We learned to look at the gun as a weapon and not as a toy. And so I don't really think the answer is, because it is prevalent here, right? I mean, there are stories of little kids bringing guns to school with not the intention to hurt anyone, but to protect themselves. Like it's in their neighborhoods. You can't, it is about education, but also the parents have to be responsible. If you know your kid is is suffering mentally, then you're right. You don't give them access to weapons. You take them, you get the therapy, you do whatever you can. So I don't think it's a matter of, there are parts of this country that kids as young as 12 learn how to drive.
Yeah, it's
farms and things like that. It is all about education. That is the linchpin.
No doubt. Go ahead, Kava.
Sorry, and my problem with this is that why are we teaching kids to rely on them when they're underage kids who are going to go to these stores and companies that are selling them are basically saying, hey, kids, come on, let's get you some guns. It looks like the real thing.
Well,
instead of
because
being
because they're obsessed, Kava. You know, we have a culture that is obsessed with guns. As I mentioned again, we have about 140 guns per 100 people in this country. And for anybody, any imbecile that wants to tell you that more guns make us safer, you just let them know that we are top 5 in the world as far as more guns than anybody else. And we are also top 5 in gun violence. So what they're saying, it's in fact, you make the argument the other way around because facts back it up that more guns make us unsafe.
Right.
702-221-7283. And again, the number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, is 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to Joseph. Joseph is next up on PTL. What's going on, Joseph?
Yeah, hey, Brian. All right, here's my piece. Hearing what Brian Kemp, after seeing that commercial with Brian Kemp with that machine gun of his,
I have,
makes me think that, like I always say, all the MAGA Republicans are doing is they're putting their money into the hands of the National Rifle Association, and that's why Trump wants to use Project 2025 because he doesn't care if children were killed in schools, and if they try to open schools, they're going to let mass shootings keep going at it, and Trump doesn't care.
Yeah, you're right. And as somebody on social media just said, I have over 50 guns. The more, the merrier. These are obviously very ignorant people. What they don't seem to understand is, and they make the case that all the guns we have in this country, that's not the problem. They make the case that we don't have a gun problem. Those are also the same people that talk about God and have no solutions to all the gun violence in this country. Their argument, well, the person has to commit the crime, not the gun. Well, if that's the case, then why don't we allow armed tankers and machine guns and bombs? Why don't we allow all those things? No, there are rules and regulations, and if they want to go back to the Constitution, it's called a well-regulated militia. It is not well-regulated when you allow anybody at the age of 18 to buy as many guns as you want and as many rounds of ammunition as you want with absolutely no training. That's not well regulated. So if people want to preach to me about the Constitution, I'm sorry, but they're wrong. It's absolutely wrong, Joe.
And I also agree with that. And also, after seeing so many stupid commercials from Marjorie Taylor Greene and that stupid, that one commercial I saw about the girl was drowned in a pool and the mother was praying and everybody's going to say thoughts and prayers as they're sitting on their lounge chairs. That's what these MAGA Republicans like to do. They want to stay when they don't care. Like I say, they don't care if children were killed, and they want to see teachers as consumer trainees by buying guns for them. And not to mention, I believe in Kamala Harris. I hope Kamala Harris will bring that up to the debate as well.
I'm sure she will, Joe. And here's, again, I love these right-wing talking points from these fools that have no idea what they're talking about. Let's just take all of our guns and all of our rights away. Okay, so for these imbeciles that make these kinds of statements that are too cowardly to call into this show, let me respond to that by saying this, Ileana. First of all, there's not one prominent Democrat, not one, that anybody could name that has a policy put forth to take, quote, all your guns and rights away.
No.
How do I know this? Because the Democrats have talked about this. They all support the Second Amendment. What many of them don't support are the weapons of war. The types of weapons that are used in war are the types of weapons that they don't support, because those weapons were not used for hunting and they weren't used or built to defend yourself. They were built to kill as many people as possible in a short period of time. Hence the term weapons of war. So when you say they want to take all of your rights away, you are factually inaccurate and you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. For you gun lovers out there that have your 50 guns or 100 guns and say, hey, these are fun. Can't take these guns out of my dead hands. For those of you that say that, well, guess what? Tell that to the families with their children that aren't coming home yesterday. Tell that to those families that are grieving right now, because we shouldn't change anything because you just love target practice every day. You're some of the most selfish and ignorant people that this country has to offer. You're the same kinds of people that show up at Trump mega rallies with your Let's Go Brandon shirts and your Confederate flags and your Donald Trump Bibles. These are the types of people that you are. And you want to talk about indoctrinating our kids and how drag queens, the sky is falling, but yet you don't want to do anything about gun control. In fact, you want to make it easier for people to get their hands on guns. You all have zero credibility, and Donald Trump can have all of you, quite frankly.
Okay, so no, that I'm going to say that's separate from, because there's a lot of Democrats who are collectors, who are responsible gun owners and frankly collectors. So I don't agree with that with everybody. The MAGA people are not they're not all irresponsible gun owners, and not all are the same. And I want to bring up, I did see a clip of Donald Trump, I believe it was last year, after another mass shooting at a school, who said basically thoughts and prayers, and we need to move past this. He either said we need to move past this or we need to get over this. And I thought that should be played in an ad, like, and just with, I'm Kamala Harris, I support this ad, and that's it. Like, that is, to me, that is absolutely, that is him. That embodies what he cares about.
Speaking of Kamala Harris, though, Donald Trump again tried to attack Kamala Harris yesterday. And everyone likes to call Donald Trump, the brilliant businessman, right? You hear from these MAGA supporters, what a brilliant businessman.
I'm not one of them.
So he's trying to attack Kamala Harris on supporting a tax on unrealized capital gains. Clearly, he doesn't know policy, but we'll play the audio clip for you first, and then I will explain to you why Donald Trump, again, has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. Have a listen to this.
It is the craziest idea. And remember this, very rich people and big international corporations, they don't have to stay in the United States. And they will be forced to leave for other countries. They can't afford to do a thing like that. They may have great wealth and no cash, and they're going to have to pay cash. Where are they going to get the cash? If they do that, the unrealized capital gain, it's been talked about for a few years by ultra-left Marxists only. Like her father's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist teacher of economics. Can you believe this? But if that happened, this country, and I think forgetting about that particular, he's got a lot of things that are just as bad.
Here's how stupid Donald Trump is. He doesn't even understand what he's talking about, virtually when it comes to anything, but I'll give you the information on this one. When it comes to him saying Harris is for supporting a tax on unrealized capital gains. Hey, guess what, Donnie? This only applies to individuals with at least $100 million in wealth. Let me repeat that one more time. The types of people that hang out at Mar-a-Lago. This only applies to individuals with at least $100 million in wealth. The same types of tax breaks that you gave those people, the top 1%, the biggest in decades. Again, not only is he lying, but I think in this aspect, he really doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to unrealized capital gains. So not only is he lying, but he's showing his own incompetence. Now, I know a lot of the MAGA supporters won't care. They don't care what he says or what he does. They're going to vote for him no matter what.
They don't understand it either.
No, they don't.
It's trending all over social media, and that's one of the things. They have no idea what capital gains are.
No clue.
Not at all.
None.
Nothing. Nope.
Zero. And, I'm going back to what I said earlier when it came to the October 1 shooting here in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And after the October 1 shooting, when over 60 innocent souls died, we heard the same arguments, about gun control. Many of them were very valid. I was one of them. Donald Trump flies into Las Vegas when he was president. He shows up for about 45 minutes, and people can look this up. I'm not making it up, because I know somebody that was shot. And I was told that he went into this local hospital for about 30 minutes. He was upset that the photographers were not taking pictures of him for a few moments, but they were taking pictures of victims. He showed up for a few photo ops, and he was out of town within an hour. Now, why is this important? Well, he talked a good game about how he was going to get rid of these bump stocks. He met with the former leader and cheater of the NRA, and then all of a sudden his tone changed. The NRA was and is in the back pocket so many of these MAGA Republicans. You see these commercials, we played some of them for you today, of these MAGA Republicans with their guns in their hand and their Christmas photos giving their children guns, which is what Lauren Boebert did and many others. I see these Tim Walz Christmas photos, and there were teddy bears. He gives his kids teddy bears to hold. But these MAGA Republicans give them guns to hold. It's one of the many fundamental differences between so many of these Democrats and Republicans today. In the end, Donald Trump caved in. He caved into the NRA like so many of these other MAGA Republicans do. And if anything, the only solutions that they claim they have are more guns make us safer, which obviously they don't. It's actually to the contrary of that. And the Ted Cruzes of the world saying that we should lock our school doors, as if somebody who just shot their grandmother in the face is going to be deterred by a locked door. They have no solutions. In fact, they're making it easier for people to get their hands on guns. And Governor DeSantis is a perfect example of that. I mean, he's passed a bill that the possibility of felons after they get out of jail, 8 years after they get out of jail, to give them the ability to purchase guns. Now, I don't know about you. Do I think that felons could be rehabilitated? Sure. But if you commit a felony, you should never be allowed to purchase a weapon legally ever again. But obviously, some of these Republicans disagreed with me on that. And they were so up in arms when Bernie Sanders said, well, you know what? If you're behind bars, you should be allowed to vote. Now, a lot of Republicans had a lot of problems with that statement, but they have no problem with a former convicted felon purchasing a gun legally. These people are crazy and they're dangerous.
I don't know. The only thing I'm going to disagree with is, okay, if it's a felony, but it's a white collar crime and it's not it's not a violent crime. I think that's different. Not all felonies are created equal. If it's for tax evasion, there are certain rights we have in this country. We are born by violence in this country, right? I mean, we're just are. Hence, I think the love affair of guns, it started with the militias and then it's kind of exacerbated from there. Different types of the country, different rules, different thoughts. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do think the mental health issue is a huge issue. And all those little holes need to be patched up when it comes to dealing with that. This kid was on their radar. How many other of these violent acts, they were on law enforcement's radar? And I don't blame law enforcement. I blame the processes that are put into effect.
Well, there's a lot of things that we are going to learn about this shooting coming days, weeks, months, even years.
But we learn about it. We just don't fix it.
What we do know and what we are learning is that not only was there a phone call and a warning, and let me be very clear on this. When you have a credible warning in any school of a possible shooting, first of all, every single student should have to walk out of that school one by one and being checked for weapons. Sorry, but it has to be done. And school needs to end for the day. That's my personal opinion. And an investigation needs to be underway on who phone, because I'd rather have school end for the day if it was a gag or an attempted sick joke than what happened yesterday. School is either delayed or school is not in session for the day if there's snow on the ground. And I have no problem with that because it's dangerous for the buses, so on and so forth. But yet when you're telling me when somebody puts in a threat, whether it's credible or not, somebody puts in a threat that there's going to be a school shooting, you don't think school. So here's what happened yesterday. This is what we know. There was an attempted phone call. There was a call that said there was going to be a school shooting. We need to find out the protocols of what happened after that. And some of the parents are claiming that teachers were looking for this specific student who executed, sadly, this school shooting. Why are teachers doing this? Why aren't police officers doing this? That's number one. We also need to learn from the family. We know that this student was interviewed by the FBI when he was 13, claimed he never made any credible threats. His father defended his son, and his father taught his son how to use weapons, and clearly his father allowed access to the son. So there's a lot more things that we need to learn, but here's the saddest part of it all. No matter what we do, as Joe Biden said eloquently yesterday in his statement, no matter what we do, it's not going to bring those victims back. However, in their memory, we need to do something. But you'll never hear Governor Brian Kemp say that after a mass shooting. You'll never hear Governor Abbott say that after a shooting. In their memory, we need to do something. No, they'll never say that. Why is it always Democrats that are always saying we need to do something in their memory? And why is it always Republicans that want to talk about God and say now's not the time to talk about gun control? Can somebody please explain that to me? I'll open up the phone line, 702-221-7283. And again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-SAVE, 702-221-7283. Ileana, here's what I want to do. when we come back. I do want to play you some audio from Liz Cheney. I want to get your thoughts on that as a liberal Democrat. Will you accept her? I want to ask you that and many other questions. And then we will also take some phone calls again on the other side. Again, the number 702-221-7283. And for the MAGA Republicans out there and the people who have fallen in love with your guns, call into this program and tell me why I'm wrong. I'll give you the platform. Tell me why you disagree with me. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. The official gaming bar of the Pushing the Limits radio show is Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Boy, they have great gaming promotions. They really do, including a promotion where you can get free slot play. Check the bar for more details. Great food, great atmosphere. Please tell them that I sent you. It's my favorite gaming bar. In fact, the owner of Jackson's, Mr. Slipok, is in Hawaii with his beautiful wife right now. I'm very, very jealous of that. But they are wonderful people. Please check them out. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. We'll take a quick break. Your calls on the other side, 702-221-7283. We'll be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn?
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits, final segment on a Thursday. By the way, I just want to also make this very clear. Kevin Munoz, we had him earlier in the first segment. He is the Harris campaign national spokesperson, which I did say in the first segment, but I think labeled underneath it said the Biden campaign spokesperson. Obviously, that wouldn't make sense because Joe Biden is not running for re-election. So we just want to be clear on that. Also, I want to clear this up. Our phone lines are full every day. Every show, they're always full, literally. And it's been that way for a year. And we were wondering in the last 5 or 10 minutes why the phone lines weren't full today. And we just learned, unfortunately, in the last, 15, 20 minutes or so, our phone lines are down in this entire building. The phones aren't working. So it's not something on our end. It's something on the end, I would imagine, of the company. So I just wanted to be clear and let everybody know. Right now, our phone lines are dead. So we apologize for that. Listen, every day on this show, I take calls. You guys know that. You listen to the show every day. I'm sure the phone lines will be back to good. If not by the end of the show today, certainly by tomorrow. But we're having some issues with our phone lines. So I wanted to make that clear for all of you. We're not ignoring your calls. And we will certainly be talking about the issue of gun control coming up tomorrow as well. So you'll have the opportunity, and I'll make it a point so you guys have the opportunity to call in and speak your mind. Maybe I owe some of these Trump supporters an apology. Maybe they weren't calling in the last 20 minutes and they were trying to. So if that is the case, you know who you are, then I owe you an apology. And unlike Donald Trump, I'm willing to say when I'm possibly wrong. I don't even know if I am wrong, possibly wrong. But I want to play this. We have Ileana Dropkin with me here, and I want to play Ileana a little bit of audio, which is important. I think it's just as important as anything on the other side that you'll hear. But Liz Cheney has been a staunch Republican. I am not a fan of Dick Cheney. I don't think he was a good vice president. I am not a fan of Liz Cheney's politics. However, I have never sat here and attacked her character. And I got to say, I was impressed and have continually been impressed where she put her country before herself, as I respect anybody that does that, like Joe Biden. And Liz Cheney's been very outspoken on Donald Trump over the years, and I respect her very much for doing so, like other Republicans that have done the same. But now she's taking it a step further. I was like, when is she going to endorse Harris? Well, here's Liz Cheney in her own words yesterday. Have a listen to this.
As a conservative, as someone who believes in and cares about the Constitution, I have thought deeply about this. And because of the danger that Donald Trump poses, not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris.
So there you go. There's the official endorsement. It's the first time she said it on the record. I would imagine she probably said it behind closed doors before. But this is the first time that Liz Cheney has said it on the record. And this is what makes this so interesting to me. It doesn't surprise me when you have Republicans, as particularly moderate Republicans, that are saying they're voting for Harris. But you couldn't find me a more staunch, solid, far-right. She is far-right.
Yes, she is. Absolutely. She always has been.
And I'm not talking about conspiracies and stuff like that, but I'm just talking about the way she votes.
She's an old school Republican, conservative, very conservative Republican in a red state.
Very conservative, correct. So
this was strategic. That's why you haven't heard about this before. This was strategic because after Labor Day is when typically the country starts tuning in and getting serious about the presidential election. So I have a feeling she's going to be quite vocal in the middle of the country, and we haven't seen the last of her. And I'm with you. I don't care for her policies. I never thought she was a bad person, though, like I do with some of the others.
No, I don't know what's going on with our internet here. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Where did we stop? Sorry, I don't know.
Well, no, I agree with what you said. I don't have any personal issues necessarily. The only thing I will say is that her and her father, according to their voting record, were very anti-gay marriage. And then all of a sudden they changed their stance. At least they admitted they were wrong, but they changed their stance because Dick Cheney's other daughter is gay. I'm glad that they're on the right side now, but it shouldn't have to take that. That's what I would say to them.
It shouldn't, but
it shouldn't have to take that.
But at least he's supportive of his kids, which is better than some of the holier than thou's who, just, oh, my kid is gay, get away from me,
Right.
hiding it. So I do applaud Dick Cheney for that. And I mean, the joke amongst Democrats, at least, is that he's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's always been Darth Vader. And I mean, what a twist of fate where sometimes you look back, and I actually apologized to a friend of mine, a Republican friend. And I'm like the Bushes just seem so lovely compared, and because they're nice people, they're a nice family, and when you're brought up in this democratic, when you're partisan,
Yeah.
and now I just I take all that back, and how I wish we had a Bush on the other side, so if we don't win, it's not tragic like it is now. I don't know if that makes sense, but I know that the Democrats and the liberals who are listening will kind of understand that. It's just what a twist of fate this. So the Cheneys don't seem so bad anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I got at least
George
Dick
W.
Cheney.
Bush doesn't even seem so bad anymore.
Right, that's what I mean. It's
in 2000,
so interesting.
Yeah, in 2016, I'll be the first one to admit that I made a grave mistake. But like many other Americans, number one, I assumed that Hillary Clinton was going to win. I was wrong. Number two, I didn't like Donald Trump. It's why I didn't vote for him, but I also didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. And I was never a huge Hillary Clinton person either. However, when it came to Trump, and I'll focus on Trump here, I had no idea he was going to be the monster that he became.
Exactly.
Or maybe that he always was, probably. But when I saw Donald Trump visit Barack Obama when Obama was still in the White House, I thought that I was looking at a Trump that was gracious. He was respectful. He wasn't insulting anybody. He thanked the Obamas for the, and he said, we have to work together. And I said to myself, wow, this guy might work out. He might be an okay president. And I was wrong. But I think all of America, for the most part, saw that as well. And I saw a toned down Trump, and I assumed that he would put the rhetoric in the past. Now you became the president. You did it. Now be a good president and relax.
grow into the position. And you're not alone in that. I actually have a lot of friends who are independents who were Democrats who didn't like Hillary at all, and so they voted for Trump thinking he was going to be an agent of change and all that stuff, and boy was everybody wrong. So you weren't the only one. Who would have thought it would have gotten that bad?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly he's not a brain, he doesn't have a big IQ, but my goodness, who would have thought that he was in love with dictators and that he just doesn't have the capacity to grow into a position of this magnitude.
Yeah. And for the people out there that still want to go after Hillary Clinton, let me tell you something, okay? First of all, overqualified.
Right. Absolutely.
I felt like she made a lot of mistakes on the campaign trail, and sometimes she didn't resonate with the American people. But with that all being said, she conceded. And for those of you out there that want to call it, I remember Larry Elder came on this show, and I posted some of those clips on social media. And when I asked him about January 6th and the election denying, he brings up Hillary Clinton. For you dopes out there, first of all, Hillary Clinton conceded.
Yes.
She picked up the phone and put ego aside and congratulated Donald Trump. Yes, she called Donald Trump an illegitimate president. That had nothing to do with the elections. If you actually look at what she said, she called him illegitimate for the same reason that I would call Donald Trump illegitimate, because of his behavior, because of the way, the things he said about women and Gold Star families and POWs. That's why she called him an illegitimate president. And listen, Comey did not do Hillary Clinton any favors by opening up that investigation again that led nowhere.
That tanked her.
A week before the elections. But Hillary Clinton would have been, I believe, a decent president of the United States.
Yes.
I believe Kamala Harris will be a good president of the United States. And I think an advantage that Harris has that maybe, I think in the last month, she's resonated more with the American people than I thought she would.
She's grown into the position from going in and having almost 4 years as vice president. She's really grown into that more than I thought as well. Like I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I am. And now there's work that needs to be done on Tuesday. And we're talking about the upcoming debate. And here's what I think. I was asked this yesterday because there's so much going on in the news every day. I don't think about certain things. I knew that this debate was coming up, but nobody had asked me the question. And my good friend Blake Gwynn, who might be listening, his grandfather was the late, great Kenny Gwynn, who was a Republican governor, great governor in the state. He was a
really good guy.
A good man. He's just such a wonderful family, right? These are old school Republicans. Anyway, so Blake asked me on the phone yesterday. He's like, well, what's your prediction? What do you think's going to happen? He's the first person that's asked me that. I haven't even thought about it. So I'll ask you, but let me give my first impressions, and then I want to hear yours.
All right.
So here's what I think is going to happen. Let me start by saying this. We got a little insight from Kevin Munoz, who's the Harris campaign national spokesperson, as to why they wanted the mics on. They wanted the mics on because they wanted to allow Donald Trump to behave the way that he behaves so that everybody could hear it and see it. That makes sense to me. I think for the American people, and while that might help Harris, for the American people, it's probably best the mics are off.
Yeah.
The one great thing that Kamala Harris has for her going into this debate is that she is a former prosecutor.
Yes.
She knows how to debate. She knows how to disagree and do it eloquently. She did it with Mike Pence. I thought she destroyed him in that debate.
She did.
And she did a good job against Joe Biden. And people can say, well, she only got 2% of the vote. Listen, the bottom line here is performance. We're talking about performance. And I think while Donald Trump is a performer, although Stormy Daniels wouldn't claim that, but that's another story for another show. What I think is going to happen is as follows. Donald Trump is going to continue the right-wing talking points of going after her on the border. He's going to call her the border czar. He's going to probably call her anti-Semitic. He's probably going to talk about racial issues. And sure, Harris is going to have to defend the record of the Biden administration, which I believe she will be able to do. But I think she's going to hammer him on abortion. I think she's going to hammer him on the fact that he is a 34-count convicted felon, she being a former prosecutor. I believe she is going to hammer him on the COVID response. There are so many things in the arsenal that maybe Hillary Clinton didn't have that Kamala Harris has now in 2024. I think she's going to do just fine. I think she's going to look and appeal to those with a brain.
Yep.
She's going to be the smarter candidate up there on that stage. She's going to have a better understanding of policy. She's going to have a better understanding of history. And Donald Trump is going to continue his insults, and his base will like that. But I think if you're a moderate, and that's what we really care about here in November, are the moderates, the moderate Democrats, the moderate Republicans, and the independents. I believe she will appeal to those voters, and I have no doubt that that is going to happen on Tuesday. And we don't have to worry about her mental capacity or if she might be sick or any of those other things that we worried about with Joe Biden. We don't have to worry about that with her. So I think she's going to do just fine. And I think if the needle is moved at all, it's going to be with those moderate Republicans. And I think she's going to do fine. And that's what I think is going to happen.
So I want to kind of go back and remind people, because I hear this all the time with news, and they're all first of all, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She is the first woman ever in history to win the popular vote for the presidency of the United States. Now, you don't win the presidency that way, but I do think that the news constantly misses that, as well as the fact that so she already shattered those glass ceilings, that they keep saying Harris is the most qualified woman or the most qualified person ever to run for president. I don't feel that that's true. I really, again, feel it was Hillary Clinton who was the most qualified. Senator, Secretary of State, former First Lady. She was the most qualified. So I really hate the fact that the news is all of a sudden dumping on Clinton. To go back to what you're saying, I agree with you on what is hopefully going to happen. I mean, that is the dream for us on our side, is that's going to happen. I do think there's a potential also for Donald Trump to have a meltdown. And just because the mics are off, it doesn't mean his behavior is, can't kind of dwindle down. I think that's a potential. And also you got to remember, she's an attorney, and attorneys tend to go around and circumvent things and just kind of throw stuff out there. So I think for her, that's a consideration. And the only thing that I worry about as well is the bar is set really low. I mean, the bar is really low for him. So if he does okay, that's considered a win. Mm-hmm. And that's what I would be concerned about.
No question. But that's what I think is going to happen. And people want to talk about word salads and, Kamala, she's full of word salads. Oh, well, really? Well, when Donald Trump speaks, he talks about Hannibal Lecter. When Donald Trump speaks, he talked about electrocuting sharks, he'll talk about, right? Talks about, again, election denying and lies about the 2020 election. Make no mistake about it. If Donald Trump loses, he will not concede.
No.
It doesn't matter what happens. He will refuse to concede. But yet, if he wins, everything's going to be just fine. Oh, the elections worked great and everything was fair. Doesn't that concern some of you? Doesn't that concern some of you that if the guy doesn't win, he will not concede an election? This is the first time in the history of this country that we've ever had somebody like this. He refuses to concede still to this day that he lost the 2020 election. How could that not concern some of you? That's the part that's mesmerizing. I don't understand.
It concerns me. It definitely concerns me. I mean, I just find him so repulsive, and I find it so scary because he doubles down on everything in Project 25. In 2025, he doubles down on the dictators, on going after anybody who's opposed him or he feels who's opposed him.
Right.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of scary things going on in there.
We have another ill-informed MAGA supporter.
Oh, please do tell.
John on social media says, so did Hillary. Hey, John.
So did Hillary what?
Hey, John, so did Hillary. Hillary picked up the phone the night of the 2016 elections. She picked up the phone and she called Donald Trump. She congratulated him and she conceded.
And Trump
She has
mentioned
never
that.
said, Hillary has never said once that the election was stolen. She called Donald Trump an illegitimate president. That had nothing to do with the elections. It had everything to do with his behavior. I would say the same thing.
Right.
Now, some of my very special MAGA listeners might not be smart enough or might be ill-informed on this issue to understand what I am saying. I repeat it one more time. Hillary conceded the election. She called Donald Trump. Donald Trump even spoke about that. Just because you call somebody an illegitimate president doesn't mean you're saying that the election was stolen, which, by the way, Hillary Clinton has never said. Now, if some of you want to call me a liar, and while some of you might say that I am not telling the truth, what am I lying about? Donald Trump has spoken publicly about this, that Hillary had called him and conceded. So what exactly am I lying about for those of you out there that claim I'm lying?
He said at the night of the election during his speech. And then when you go back to the difference of, I mean, he's incoherent. So she might go and have a word salad, but he's absolutely incoherent.
But this is how ridiculous some of these people are. The same guy who made that comment.
They don't understand words.
The same guy who made that comment is now saying, well, in that case, Donald Trump conceded. Let me repeat and let me speak very slowly.
Absolutely, he did not.
Let me repeat and let me speak very slowly so my MAGA friends like John can understand. You see, Hillary Clinton picked up the phone and she said, congratulations, and she conceded that she lost. Donald Trump, I'm speaking very slowly for you, John. Donald Trump never picked up the phone, never conceded the election, has never said that he lost. In fact, he says today still that he won and the Democrats cheated with no evidence of widespread voter fraud that could have changed the outcome of a free and fair election. Now, John, you sound like a very special human being. And I hope I laid it out for you so now maybe you sort of understand. And if you don't, then you're a lost cause and I'm not going to waste any more time with you, John.
I can't add to that.
I mean, there are certain
you just can't fix dumb.
there are certain people that you really just can't speak logically to because they're just not smart enough to understand. There's a difference between saying someone's an illegitimate president and saying that the election they cheated and I won. Some people just struggle to really understand basic premises, really, when it comes to anything. But if Donald Trump says they cheated, well, you all believe them on the far right, and you think that they cheated. If Donald Trump says that he can end the Ukraine war in a day, you guys believe him, the same guy who wrote love letters to Kim Jong-un. I mean, Kamala Harris has so much artillery to use in this debate.
sure.
I wouldn't even know where to start if I were her, but she's a very smart lady. I'm sure she'll be very prepared, and she'll do just fine. And the fact,
and it's very structured, so it's not like she can just bring up whatever she wants, and it's unlimited. It's very structured for a reason. So, everybody kind of keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. So in my personal opinion, I think she's going to do just fine.
I think she will too.
In my personal opinion, what really matters in this, there's a lot of things that matter in this race, but just from a standpoint of how you win, we're talking about the independents and moderates. Moderates on both sides, but I think the moderates on the right are even more important because there's not many moderate Democrats that are going to be voting for Donald Trump.
No.
I'm sorry, there might be a few, but there's not many. We're moderate Republicans and independents. And make no mistake about it, when you have a former vice president that worked for you and Mike Pence that's not going to be voting for you, and 40 other members of your prior administration that will be not voting for you.
And counting.
And
I think
counting.
there's more coming down the pike. Did you happen to see? So apparently Trump is now courting the young white male. And so he's going on all these like the young influential, and they're talking about smoking crack, and I mean it's just crazy stuff, and he looks so uncomfortable and out of sorts, but that's who he's trying to court now, are these. And I don't even know if some of these people are going to get up, if they can get up the next day after smoking whatever they're smoking and doing the drugs they're doing. But so these are the niches that they're finding that he might be able to make inroads with. So, I just found that to be really disturbing, actually.
There's a lot of things coming out of the Trump camp that are disturbing. The Arlington Cemetery story, which they refused, they refused to take any responsibility for moving forward. There's a lot of things that are very disturbing.
McCain's son.
Yeah, I
came
mentioned it
out
yesterday on the show. Yep.
I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, yesterday on the show I talked about that. Also doesn't surprise me. The Trump and family members have done nothing but be disrespectful to John McCain and his family since day one. It continues, and I love the fact that John McCain's son, who's a good man and a hero, and his father, I'm sure, would be very proud of him.
And he usually doesn't speak up publicly, and I think that's what makes a difference. His
Well,
widow, spoken up, obviously, Meghan McCain, but his son has never been super vocal.
But this is what are the Republicans focused on? MAGA Republicans. They're focused on Kamala Harris's accent. A question by Peter Douchey, as I like to call him. All the problems, and all the serious issues in this country, whether it be gun control, whether it be the border. But Peter Douchey from Fox News decides to ask Jean-Pierre a question about Harris's accent. They talk about her accent, right?
What are they saying about her?
Well,
what accent?
They talk about her accent, and they talk about the fact that she spoke with a Southern accent a little differently than what she would in other circumstances. So they don't just talk about her accent, but they talk about her laugh, her cackle laugh.
I'm sure.
I was driving in to work today, and Clay Travis, who is just despicable, goes on the air and he starts talking about how Harris is only 5'2" and Donald Trump is this big, strong Superman, and Harris, and that's going to affect her. I mean, it's just, listen, you can't have a reasonable conversation.
That's why they invented heels for some of us who were vertically challenged. Like, what is he challenging her to a boxing match and reach matters? I don't understand that.
As Jay correctly points out, on social media, that they really don't have anything on her, and this is what they go after. It could be her accent or the color of her skin. All right, so here's what I want to do here. I want to explain to you guys real quickly that this is an independently owned radio show. So what does that mean? Well, it means we have expenses to pay, and it's expensive to put together a radio show every day, but we're independently owned. So what that means, very simply put, is like we're public radio or public TV, meaning we rely on good people like yourselves to support what we do and help support what we do in any way you can. So here's what you can do. If you have a few minutes, only take a few minutes. First of all, check out our new website. We're really happy about it. It's pushingthelimits.live. Pushingthelimits.live. That's step number one. Step number two, we do have merchandise up there, shirts, hats, mugs. We've had some purchases today. We appreciate all of you. So check it out. And if there's something on there that you want to buy for yourself or for a friend that you think you would like, please do so. Third thing, if you don't want to buy merchandise, right on the front page when you go to pushingthelimits.live, you'll see a donate button. Takes about 2 minutes to do. $5, $10, $20, whatever you can afford, we appreciate. And if you make a donation, you're going to hear a personal thank you from yours truly, and I will reach out to all of you. So please check them out, pushingthelimits.live. I'm also very happy to announce that we have gained about 10,000 YouTube subscribers in just the last few weeks. Crazy. 10,000 YouTube subscribers. So thank you all for subscribing to my YouTube page. If you haven't, it's at PTL Radio Show. Again, at PTL Radio Show. We're also up to around, I think it's actually over 25,000 Twitter followers. We've gained like 15,000 Twitter followers in the last week or so. So it's the ever-growing popular show here, which I'm so eternally grateful to all of you for listening. That's why I also put my personal email down at the bottom of the screen for every show, for anybody that wants to reach out to me and has a question or a comment or even constructive criticism. I listen to all of you, and I appreciate all of you very much. Tomorrow is Friday, and thank God it's Friday. Yes, tomorrow is Friday. Some more special guests will be joining us on the show tomorrow. And, of course, Nicole Mitchell will be with us tomorrow as well. So certainly looking forward to that. And hopefully we'll get our phone line situation taken care of, because in the last 45 minutes or so, it took a crap and our phone lines are not working properly. So we'll get it fixed for you. And anybody that was trying to call in today, our apologies. We will try to get that fixed and be working tomorrow. And we will open up the phone lines tomorrow, I promise you. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us. Thanks to Ileana Dropkin for coming in, for dropping in. Ileana Dropkin dropping in today. And we will see you all tomorrow. Same time, same place. Have a great day, everybody.
Tired of the same old date night? Craving a deeper connection with your partner? O-Box is your escape into a world of romance and passion. Each month, discover a box filled with personalized surprises, exciting activities, and a love story written just for the two of you. Ignite desire, share laughter, and make memories that last a lifetime. Your O-Box journey culminates into a beautiful love novel. Ready to write the first thrilling chapter? Let the O-Box adventure begin. Visit our website, obox.com. That's OBOXXX.com and get started.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery